People think honesty means sharing everything, every feeling, every plan, every secret wound, laid bare for the world to see. But that's not honesty. That's exposure. Carl Jung understood that the most powerful truths don't live in what you say, but in what you protect. Some things, when spoken too soon, lose their energy, their sacred charge. And yet, we live in an age that rewards oversharing, where silence is mistaken for secrecy and privacy for pride. But tell me, how much of your peace has been lost because you revealed something before it was ready to be seen? There's a reason ancient mystics, philosophers, and spiritual masters kept certain things veiled. Not because they were hiding, but because they understood the weight of energy and attention. The more you give away your inner world, the less power it holds to shape your outer one. Jung once hinted that the unconscious only reveals its treasures to those who can hold them. That means some truths are meant to be kept close, not out of fear, but out of reverence for their potency. Your life, your transformation, your divine process. It's sacred art, not public entertainment. In this video, we're going to uncover 6 things Carl Jung believed you should never tell anyone, not because they're shameful, but because they're sacred. Each one holds a piece of your power, your spiritual maturity, and your alignment with something higher. And once you understand why certain truths must remain unspoken, you'll begin to see silence not as emptiness, but as mastery, the language of those who truly know themselves. Everyone carries a private landscape within, a terrain shaped by memories, shame, and the scars of moments they never fully understood. The funny thing is, people think healing means showing those wounds to everyone, as if validation is the medicine. But the truth is, the moment you expose an unhealed part of yourself to the wrong energy, it starts bleeding again. The human psyche is like a seed. It needs darkness before it can sprout. Jung knew that what we hide isn't evil, it's just raw energy waiting for form. When you share it too soon, you give others the power to define it for you. And that's how many lose their inner authority before they even realize they had it. The shadow isn't something to be confessed, it's something to be befriended. Think of it like electricity, harmless when contained, dangerous when mishandled. When you start revealing the parts of you that you haven't yet embraced, others project their fears, their judgments, their unfinished stories onto you. It's not personal, it's psychological physics. Their mind mirrors back its own darkness. So, what feels like connection can quietly become contamination. Protecting your shadow isn't secrecy, it's self-respect. Because until you integrate it, the world can't see you clearly, and neither can you. And yet, there's a quiet magic that happens when you hold your darkness with dignity. It stops owning you. You become the watcher, not the wounded. In that stillness, you begin to sense another layer beneath the pain, something sacred, creative, and alive. It's that same energy that fuels your dreams and desires, which, funny enough, are the next things people tend to give away too quickly. Because when it comes to manifestation, not everyone deserves to hear the melody before it becomes music. Dreams are like unborn children of the soul, delicate, easily frightened, and not yet ready for the harsh light of other people's opinions. The moment you share them too early, the vibration shifts. Someone rolls their eyes, asks a practical question, or reminds you of statistics, and suddenly the flame flickers. Not because your dream was weak, but because it needed protection, not proof. The early stage of creation is fragile. It's a conversation between you and the unseen. Every great inventor, artist, or mystic knew that silence was their first collaborator. They guarded their vision until it could stand on its own feet. People often underestimate how easily energy can be drained through words. You've probably noticed that when you talk about a goal too much, the motivation to act fades. It's the illusion of accomplishment. Your mind thinks it's already done something simply because it spoke it aloud. Jung would have said the unconscious loses its tension when you leak it prematurely. The real alchemists understood this. They knew to let desire build pressure, like steam in an engine, until it becomes unstoppable momentum. Sharing too soon releases that pressure into thin air, leaving you with plans that never lift off the ground. So, there's wisdom in keeping your dreams private, not from fear, but from reverence. They're sacred blueprints being drawn by invisible hands, and every word you speak about them sends ripples through the field. The dream grows stronger in silence, like roots deepening before the bloom. And when that vision finally begins to show itself in your reality, another temptation arises to talk about the mystical moments that shaped it, the spiritual experiences no one else could understand. But not every revelation is meant to be explained. Some are meant to be lived. There comes a point when the invisible starts speaking louder than the visible. You feel synchronicities stack up, dreams that whisper truths, and a strange clarity that others might call coincidence. The instinct is to share it, to tell someone, "You won't believe what just happened." But most won't. Not because they're against you, but because they haven't seen through that lens yet. When you describe light to someone still standing in the dark, they think you're exaggerating. Jung would smile at that and say, "It's not their fault. They simply haven't met their own depth yet." So the sacred stays safest in silence until it integrates fully into your life. Mystical experiences aren't meant to prove anything. They're meant to transform. The moment you rush to define them, you confine them. Spiritual awakening is like waking from a dream. You can't translate the feeling of flight into language that fits gravity. And when you try, it often turns into spiritual pride or confusion. People start comparing visions instead of embodying them. That's how many seekers lose their way, turning revelation into conversation instead of practice. Silence here isn't secrecy, it's calibration. It lets the new frequency settle before the world's noise interferes. Those who've walked this path quietly know the strength of restraint. They don't announce miracles, they become them. They don't talk about divine downloads. They live aligned decisions that prove their source. The true mystic learns that what's real doesn't need validation. Yet even the most grounded souls still wrestle with inner storms, conflicts and fears that test everything they've discovered. And that's where the real transformation begins, in the quiet struggle no one sees. Inside, every person lives a quiet battlefield, the place where desire meets doubt, courage meets conditioning, and the future wrestles with the past. Most people panic at the first sign of inner conflict, thinking it's a flaw to fix. But in truth, it's a sacred dialogue between who you were and who you're becoming. Jung saw tension not as a problem, but as creative pressure. It's what forges authenticity. When you share these battles too soon, though, others may misread them as weakness instead of transformation. They'll try to fix what was never broken, and suddenly, your personal growth becomes public opinion. We live in an age where everyone wants to be real, but very few understand the art of privacy, not secrecy, privacy. Because when you speak of your fears before you face them, they multiply in the echoes of other people's interpretations. The mind is porous. It absorbs suggestion like a sponge. Tell someone you're afraid, and they'll unconsciously reinforce that vibration with their own anxieties. It's like trying to build a house while strangers keep rearranging the walls. True mastery begins when you learn to hold your fears in stillness, long enough for understanding to replace panic. In that quiet containment, something beautiful happens. Fear transforms into wisdom. The same energy that once paralyzed you becomes the spark of intuition. You start realizing that fear was never the enemy. It was a messenger, a compass pointing to the edges of your potential. But this understanding only blossoms when you stop explaining and start observing. And once you do, another subtle shift appears. The impulse to do good, to serve, to give from that newfound clarity. But even there, the wise know, not every good deed needs an audience. There's a quiet nobility in doing something good when no one's watching. But the modern world has taught people to broadcast virtue like a highlight reel. Post a donation here, a selfless act there, and suddenly the sacred turns into self-promotion. Jung understood this subtle trap of the ego. The moment we seek applause for kindness, the energy behind it changes. True service doesn't crave witnesses. It's the kind of goodness that leaves no fingerprints, yet shifts the air around it. When you act from genuine compassion, the universe notices, even if no one else does. Think about the people who've helped you when they had nothing to gain. Those quiet gestures that healed something invisible inside you. They never mentioned it again, never asked for recognition. That's divine energy moving through human hands. But when we start announcing every act of love, we dilute the magic. The ego feeds on acknowledgement like a sugar rush. It feels good for a moment, then leaves you craving more. Real goodness sustains itself in silence. It doesn't need validation because it's not seeking identity through virtue. It's expressing essence through presence. Ironically, the less you talk about your light, the brighter it becomes. The world may not notice at first, but life has a strange way of reflecting purity back to those who embody it. The reward isn't external praise, it's internal peace. And that peace builds the confidence to keep growing quietly, without external permission. Yet growth itself is another thing we often rush to declare before it's ready. People announce transformations that haven't rooted yet, and that's when life steps in to test their authenticity. Growth is a tender thing. It begins as a whisper, not a declaration. When you start transforming, it's tempting to tell the world, "I'm finally changing, I'm becoming someone new." But that early stage is sacred soil. The moment you announce it, you invite the world's noise into your process. Doubt, advice, comparison, they all creep in and pull at your roots before you've even taken shape. Jung called this the interference of the collective. Growth needs privacy because it's fragile. You can't climb out of a cocoon while explaining the process to everyone watching. Transformation thrives in silence. The best changes happen while no one's paying attention, when the caterpillar vanishes into stillness and re-emerges with wings. People often mistake silence for stagnation, but that's where the inner work happens. The rewiring of habits, the reprogramming of belief, the quiet victories no one sees. Sharing your plans too early can unconsciously attach you to others' expectations. Suddenly, you're not evolving for yourself anymore. You're performing growth for an audience. And when life tests that growth, it collapses under the weight of borrowed validation. So keep your evolution private until it blooms naturally into your reality. When your energy shifts, you won't need to explain it. Others will feel it. The truest growth announces itself through presence, not proclamations. And as you begin walking that path of sacred discretion, something remarkable happens. You start embodying a deeper wisdom, one that understands the power of mystery. Which brings us to the heart of this teaching, the realization that some truths are meant to be lived, not shared. The wisest souls aren't the loudest in the room. They're the ones who understand when to speak and when to protect their silence. Every truth you hold carries frequency, and every word you speak shapes reality. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, prove, or announce, ask yourself, is this coming from power or from fear? Real growth doesn't need validation. It radiates through your energy long before it shows in your actions. What if the peace you've been chasing has been waiting for you in the quiet you've been avoiding? You've seen now that keeping certain things sacred isn't suppression, it's sovereignty. It's how you preserve your energy, protect your manifestation, and honor your spiritual process. Jung didn't teach people to hide. He taught them to guard what's still forming inside. So maybe your next chapter doesn't require another confession. It requires containment, patience, and trust. Because when your vibration stabilizes in silence, the universe responds louder than any applause ever could. So tell me, Which of these 6 truths do you feel called to protect starting today? Share your reflection in the comments. I'd love to hear your insight, and if you're ready to keep deepening your spiritual awareness, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next teaching. Stay grounded, stay conscious, and remember, some of your greatest power lives in what you choose not to say.